So, what would be the method that you guys have looked at of broadcasting the energy? Would you do microwaves, lasers? How would the method of broadcasting that energy back down to the surface be done?
Both of those power broadcast methods have been looked at. First, we looked at the broadcasting on radio waves, basically microwaves, at 2.45 gigahertz, I believe 9.8 gigahertz, and 12.2 gigahertz. The 2.45 gigahertz was the most attractive because that had been reserved by the FCC and by the ITU for power broadcasting purposes. But over the years, Bluetooth technology and wireless technology has moved in and almost taken by, what would you call it, eminent domain, simply by squatting on those frequencies, pretty much remove that from the potential. So we'd have to look at a higher frequency probably for the radio broadcast of that signal. And of course it has a 1 over R square power path loss associated with it. As does lasers. Lasers was the next form of energy broadcast that we looked at. It has attributes and benefits as well. For example, comparing laser to the microwave broadcast, we anticipated that the receiving antenna, the rectifying antenna on the surface of the Earth for the microwave broadcast would be 16 kilometers in diameter, and the broadcaster on orbit would be 1 kilometer across. Those are massive structures that require real estate, space lift, lots of costs associated with it. A laser is certainly smaller. The idea would be to have a pedestal receiver on the surface of the Earth and have a laser broadcast down with a positive control link. Essentially, the receiver station would shoot a very low power laser up at the satellite, which would authorize the direct spot beam of the laser energy broadcast down to Earth. We anticipated that we could possibly use 1.0 micron, maybe 8.2 microns, or 1.2 microns for the laser energy wave that would come down. There was many people that actually believe that the laser is more viable. I believe Ray Brandhorst, formerly of the University of Auburn, I believe that's correct. I'm not sure. I'd have to check what university he's at. And certainly Marty Hoffert out of New York City, and Art Dula, head of the Heinlein Foundation, believes that laser broadcast will be the most viable because it alleviates the real estate problems. But it does come with a couple of very definite legal concerns that would have to be taken into account. And some of those have to do with policy and international law and treaties. How comfortable are people going to be with a laser cutting down from space to Earth to provide energy? Who would be the most likely to do that first? How could you do that? Well, when we did our study in 2007, General Armour was very insistent, and rightly so, I believe, that it really doesn't matter who does space-based solar power, as long as anybody or somebody does space-based solar power. But we would be encouraged if the Chinese, the Russians, or even the Al-Qaeda went into the space-based solar power business. Because if anybody does it, if anybody demonstrates the viability, then we have another source of safe, clean energy. At no time did we ever recommend, or would we, that space-based solar power be the solution to all of your energy needs. We came to think about space-based solar power as just another form of safe, clean energy. And think of it in terms of like a healthy diet. You need a well-varied diet to remain healthy. And when it comes to energy consumption, we will always need liquid energy. We'll need broadcasted energy like space-based solar power. We'll need other combustion-type systems, etc. So it just becomes part of a healthy diet of energy for the planet. Nothing that's going to replace or supplant any other form of energy. When we started, we also went to the oil companies. We went to the Greater Houston Partnership and discussed with them our plan, because we did not want big oil to ever feel threatened with this. In fact, we encouraged them to actually consider themselves more broadly as energy corporations instead of just petroleum corporations. The idea there being that as their supply of petroleum dips, if they want to remain in the energy business, that perhaps space-based solar power could be an alternative that they could turn to. I'm very pleased that British Petroleum showed a great deal of interest in space-based solar power and gave us the greatest help that we would receive from that community. I think it's unfortunate in their corporate case for the oil spill that happened in the Gulf and all of the legalese that's happened afterwards, but I have to give them high compliments for the support that they gave us during that study. We found it fascinating that everywhere we went with our briefing on space-based solar power, we were half expecting to be laughed out of the room or thrown out of the room as we toured the halls of government. We first went to NASA to ask who does space-based solar power, and NASA said, we do space, we don't do energy. Okay, so we went over to the Department of Energy, and they said, we do energy, we don't do space. So the study fell on us to actually do it from start to finish, and it was quite an exciting project. I have to go back, though, sitting here at the NewSpace conference to bring it back to the business case. It's going to be a hard, long process. It rests on an awful lot of technology that's on the shelf. We know how to collect energy. We know how to convert it to radio or laser broadcast. We know how to recollect those energies and convert them back into electricity. But the one thing that we don't know how to do right now is to build a practical, large-scale space program that's free from the over-bureaucracy of government regulation. We seriously hope that it will be done eventually in the commercial market on a business model. We spoke quite often about the need for it to be an internationally traded public corporation that would do space-based solar power. We felt that including unusual partners, say nations of Africa, the little nations of Asia, countries in Europe, Canada, Switzerland, Japan, that including them would be our best way of going through the legal procedures with the United Nations and with the rest of the world to demonstrate the safeness and the cleanliness of space-based solar power.